Sekeres Price, a special post-game edition. Round 2, Game 6, Edmonton Oilers 5, Vancouver Canucks 1, and this best of 7 Western Conference Series now all knotted up, 3 games apiece. Game 7 going here in Vancouver at Rogers Arena on Monday evening. Matt Sekeres alongside Frank Corrado, former Vancouver Canuck, TSN hockey analyst, sitting in for Blake Price tonight, who's calling the Whitecaps game down in Seattle. Grady Sass hitting switches and conducting things from a wedding, Frankie, at the Italian Cultural Center.
This guy's unreal.
If you hear a little Cello Luna coming in the background, all right, you'll know what that's about. This show, as always, a presentation of Applewood Auto Group. We're right now at Applewood Kia Surrey, the Kia EV6 finance of 4.49%. Up to 60 months on all trims, and the 2024 Sportage finance at 4.49%, up to 48 months on all trims. Buddy, first of all, thank you for sitting in tonight. You were working hard on the TSN desk there, Sports Center, taking apart these games. First and foremost, Frank, just want to ask your impressions of, look, it was 9 straight 1-goal games for the Vancouver Canucks in these playoffs, and even on the nights where they weren't the best team, they found a way to stay close, and some of those games, they even found a way to win, but they were by far the inferior team tonight. They get blown out by 4 goals. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It felt like it was, it's the worst game that I've seen that team play in a long time. And that probably goes back into the regular season. And that's going to happen. It couldn't happen at the worst possible time. Like, you have an opportunity to close out the Edmonton Oilers, and it's a pretty good first period where Connor McDavid, like, he actually had a rough first period. He takes a penalty. He's like, I saw the expected goal percentage. He's like at 20%. And we're thinking, man, they're going to do it again. Like, they're going to find another way to shut down Connor McDavid, and especially on the road. But then it just felt like the speed and the intensity of the Oilers really picked up. And, there's a couple goals that go in quick succession that kind of takes the whatever wind out of the sails the Vancouver Canucks may have had at that point. And that was it. Like, the Oilers never really looked back. And McDavid was, he was a big story. The 3 assists, really good game for him. Nugent Hopkins was really good. But like, it feels like Vancouver was never really close to winning that game, and it feels like a big opportunity missed. But I will say, on the bright side, like, you still have an opportunity to win this thing in 7 games coming back on home ice. So, it's just not all is lost. It's just it's not wasn't a banner night for that team.
Yeah, from an X's and O's standpoint, Frankie, what did you pick up from the second period onward? Because you're right. I mean, Vancouver was pretty good in the first period. Another low shot period for both teams, only 4 shots apiece through 20 minutes. And then in the second period, that's when Edmonton puts the hammer down. The shots are 14-5 in that period, and the Oilers get a couple of goals in that period to extend to a 3-1 lead. What did you see from an X's and O's standpoint from the second period onwards?
You know what? I'm not even sure it's specifically like X's and O's, but I do think there's a few things that, like, so there's a shift where we're watching in our viewing room here, and JT Miller is ready to come on the ice. You can see he's staying. McDavid is on the ice already, and it's Oman, and it's like the 4th line is on. Brock gets on the ice because player changed, but McDavid grabbed it quickly, and he turned it the other way, and it turned into like a little rush chance for Zach Hyman. And I'm thinking, like, that's the difference between home ice and away ice. Is McDavid's on the ice already, you're trying to match it, even if you have to do it on the fly. You do have to do it on the fly because you're on the road. And that's the difference between McDavid having a rush chance and McDavid, having to work through JT Miller. So there was a little bit of that was happening. But I think more than the X's and O's, Matt, it kind of comes down to tonight, like, the Oilers were a really desperate team, and their commitment to defense was more than it has been in the past. Like, they really found a way. Like, when Vancouver only gets 15 shots, and I know Vancouver doesn't generate a ton of, quantity of chances, but still, it's like, the Oilers, there was a certain sense of, like, desperation and intensity to their game that it felt like, the Canucks never really matched. And even towards the end of the game, It's kind of thinking, all right, is there going to be a big dust up? Is there going to be an altercation? Is there going to be a little bit of like, okay, you got one on us, but it's not, this is unacceptable, and we're going to get you next game. They didn't go like super quietly, but they went quieter than maybe I thought they would have. Given the way things have really been heated throughout the course of the series.
Yeah, 4 misconducts given at the 1809 mark of the third period. Vancouver's Evander Kane. I mean, he's from here. He's an Oiler.
Yeah.
Vincent Desharnais, and then Nikita Zadorov and Vasily Podkolzin on the Canucks side of things. But yes, they didn't get louder after that. Frank, what did you make of Artur's She Loves? Because if we're to believe Rick Tocchet, he is going to start Game 7. Tocchet saying Demko is not an option for Game 7. A word or two about the Vancouver goaltender here this evening.
Listen, he's been really good, and it's been an unbelievable story. Just like his team in front of him, tonight wasn't his night. I didn't love the Hyman goal where he gets a piece of it, and then it goes in. I hated the Bouchard goal. Like, defensemen should never be scoring from the point without a screen. I don't care how hard the guy shoots the puck. Like, that should never go in. But I don't think his game was any worse than the team in front of him's game. Like, it was kind of even all the way around the board. And it's an interesting spot for this young guy, because now you get shelled for 5 on the road in Edmonton. It's a loud, raucous arena there. Like, how quickly can you kind of park that and get focused and ready for the next game on home ice? But it seems like he has the kind of personality where he can do that and just say like, oh, it's one game and we're gonna move on. But this would have been the game where I was like, I'm not, I didn't love his game the way I've really liked some of his games in the past.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree on the Bouchard goal, and I think that's the backbreaker, because it's a goal from distance with no traffic in front. It goes straight into. There's no deflection there, and it's a 2-goal lead, which they take into the second intermission. The Canucks have been so good in the third period, down 2-1, even as poorly as they have played in the second period. I think they got a fighting chance, but 2 goals down is a really, really big ask, and I think it affected the Canucks spirit a little bit. You mentioned just the 15 shots, Frankie, and I know I have been pounding this drum, and I know smarter people like you have been telling me, no, Tocchet's right. Quality is better than quantity when it comes to shots. You want to keep possession of that puck, but I got to ask you about the test, or the lack of test, that they put before Stuart Skinner, who comes into this game a little emotionally bruised, a little psychologically bruised. It was a heck of a goaltending decision. Well, 2 different decisions that face Chris Knobloch in this series. The Edmonton Oilers head coach, a word or two on Stuart Skinner and what the Canucks did or didn't do against him as he retook the crease here for Game 6.
I thought it was really surprising, especially on that first Vancouver power play. Like, they have the puck and they're moving it around, and you start thinking, you're like, do these guys realize that, Skinner's in net and he's probably a little bit shaky, and you have to test him, and you have the power play, and everyone's got the puck. And I think from that moment on, it was like, there was such a reluctance to kind of test him and shoot. And, that was a golden opportunity for a guy. Think about the stakes for Stuart Skinner. No one would have second guessed Chris Knobloch if he just went with Calvin Pickard and said, this is the guy we're going to go with the rest of the series. Like, it was really bold for him to go to Skinner. And if Skinner loses that game and it doesn't go well for him, there's repercussions not only for him, but there's repercussions for that team, because that team's suddenly going to look very different next year. And there's a lot of big decisions looming. So, like, he stepped into a really tricky situation, and the Vancouver Canucks did not make that situation harder than it had to be for him. It was a pretty easy night for him. So I was surprised at that, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the talk going into this game was that, Vancouver was facing a tough playoff test on the road. Edmonton was facing an organizational reckoning if they lose this hockey game, and it just didn't seem like the Canucks had that killer instinct. All right, 2 games in a row, frankly, in Edmonton, that I would say the Canucks haven't had that killer instinct. Who did you like from a Canucks perspective tonight, Frankie? Obviously, the fans are very upset. They're quoting Rick Tocchet, too many passengers. 3 out of 4 guys, 75% were passengers tonight. But Who did you like from a Canucks perspective this evening?
So admittedly, I liked Pedersen's like first couple shifts, and then I felt
His
like I
first
didn't
period
see
was
him.
pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
like
thought his first period was good, but
I thought the first period was good. I thought Hoglander was good in the first period. The
yes.
problem is in the second period, everyone kind of went away. And it's like we didn't, we didn't see that anymore. So I mean, outside, like to make the judgments in the first period, I think there's some, some performances you didn't mind. But from the second period on, like it was a lot of, not what we're accustomed to seeing. Like we're kind of accustomed to seeing this now. The Canucks, not only do they hang in with the Oilers at 5-on-5, like that's long gone. They can take it to the Oilers at 5-on-5. And they did that in game 5. In game 6, like the Edmonton Oilers kind of beat Vancouver at their own game here, where it's like Edmonton doesn't get a power play goal, but they still win the game. And that was different than in game 5. So like yes, first period Hoglander, first period Pedersen, but that's not nearly enough. And this was the first game that I felt like the bigger defensemen kind of they had trouble with Edmonton's speed. I thought that may have been something that would have been a storyline prior to the series if Edmonton were to win. Like tonight was the first time I actually felt like maybe they weren't able to handle the speed, and that was the kind of McDavid and Nugent Hopkins goal.
Yeah, 2 5-on-3s on this in this hockey game, Frankie. The Canucks kill off the first one, and you're thinking, okay, maybe some momentum's coming around, and then make an absolute hash of the 5-on-3. They're gifted. A word or two about the 2 5-on-3s tonight.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I know. So you have to find a way on those chances. Like they're just such golden opportunities. And the thing that would be frustrating, Matt, is that you have the guys on the ice that are the right players in those situations to do it, and they don't get it done. And I thought their 5-on-4 power play had a little something going where it was like they were moving the puck really well. And for me, it was like the 5 best guys that you could possibly put on the ice for Vancouver, and still doesn't find a way to break through. But in that same, just how we were talking about Skinner, where the Canucks didn't find a way to really pepper him in a 5-on-3 situation, like that's got to be the first thing you're thinking. Like we got some good shooters, we got good one-timer shooters. We got to find a way to be blasting away, retrieve these pucks, and do it all over again. And that wasn't the case, mind you. They did kill off a 5-on-3 of their own, so you saw it off. But who would have thought that if you hold the Oilers to 2 games in a row with no power play goals, you would think you would win those games. The Oilers, they're a power play driven team in the playoffs. 5-on-5 is where they've struggled, but tonight Vancouver made it too easy for them at 5-on-5.
Yeah, let's get to one of the listeners, one of the followers of Sekeres Price here. Every post-game show, we like to bring one perspective to the table and discuss it. I'll go to Arcade Link here, who says the Canucks looked like they were done with the series, just playing without discipline, getting bad penalties. And he says, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And then adds, thankfully, this never happens 2 games in a row. It has been since late March, since the Canucks have lost 2 games in a row. You've got to hand it to them there. They've usually played a very good hockey game after a loss. Frank, of course, some fans will be screaming bloody murder about the officiating tonight, but you tell me, what did you think of the officiating? What did you think of the Canucks' discipline or lack thereof?
I didn't. I'm not going to make it about officiating because
you lose by 4 goals. It's not about officiating.
100%.
There may have been a call or two tonight that you would have liked.
Well, you also
I didn't think it was the best officiated game, but I didn't think it was as bad as game 2 or game 3 was. So I'll
did
give
you
it to
like?
them
Did you? I mean, like if you're going to complain about the officiating from a Vancouver perspective, did you like when Connor Garland drew that penalty in the early goings of the game, and like Leon Draisaitl? Like I don't know, that's one of those things where it's a little bit of a love tap. It's playoff hockey. Let guys play through it, and then then guys are mauling each other, and you're not calling that kind of stuff. So I didn't have an issue with the officiating tonight. I think this game was lost. There are 15 things that you could point to before officiating when it comes to why the Canucks lost.
Yeah, no, I didn't love the officiating. I didn't love the standard, as you mentioned. The other thing is, oftentimes refs want to swallow whistles in game 6 or game 7. They didn't do that tonight. They made it clear they were going to call things early on. So you've got to adapt to that. Not sure the standard held through the game, but by the same token, I don't think it's the reason why you lose by 4 goals. Look, no, not the reason the Vancouver Canucks.
Listen, Dylan Holloway scored, the highlight of the night. Like you can't let Dylan Holloway, you can't let anyone do that. But that was soft on 3 different plays up the ice. It's like there's Pettersson, there's Hughes, there's Hronek, and it's in the back of the net. It's like, talk about that stuff before you talk about the officiating. But like we said, like this is one game in a 7-game series, and they are still positioned to win one game and win that series. And I think that's a good spot to be. They're comfortable at home, and they have something going for them now. Everyone in that room, very, very highly motivated to have a big bounce back performance. And that is something that should drive this group come game 7.
Frank, the other thing that I wanted to ask you about, and you mentioned Dylan Holloway, and in a series with all these great offensive players, he scores the most beautiful goal in the series. I mean, that was absolutely artistic the way he knifed through the Vancouver Canucks and scored that goal. It took until game 4, Frank, for a forward not named Hyman, Draisaitl, or McDavid to score for the Oilers. Well, they got a Nugent Hopkins goal in game 4. They got a Janmark goal in game 5. And then tonight, the floodgates opened for the supporting cast. Nugent Hopkins scores, Holloway scores, Evander Kane scores. How worried would you be if you're the Vancouver Canucks that this is no longer just a 2 superstar and 3 forward team that you're facing in game 7?
I'm not super worried, Matt, because, as long as I've been talking about the Oilers and other people have as well, like depth scoring has been an issue for them. And every year it feels like they seem to have addressed it. But the Oilers are going to go as far as the top players will take them. I don't think you've awoken some sleeping giant here when it comes to the depth players. I think things are just kind of evening out a little bit. Like there was such a lack of it from Edmonton's point of view that it was going to average out a little bit. But for Vancouver, that wouldn't be my focus. My focus is still going to be, how do I find a way to make sure McDavid doesn't go off for 3 points, Draisaitl doesn't go off for 2 goals, and Hyman doesn't score on. That's still the focus, and see if you can win your matchups lower in the lineup.
Rick Tocchet does something very smart in this hockey game, Frank. 2-goal lead or 2-goal deficit going into the 3rd period, and 3.5 minutes in, it's a 3-goal deficit. He backs off playing the big guns. Philip Hronek and Quinn Hughes played a lot tonight. Well, Hughes played 26 minutes plus. Hronek 20.5 minutes. No forward hits 20 minutes. It looks like he rolled 4 lines through the 3rd period, hoping to keep him fresh and willing to fight another day. That's pretty smart, because I think a lot of coaches would have chased it in the 3rd period and double shifted all the best forwards.
I completely agree. And on the other side of the aisle, in game 3, McDavid plays 30 minutes and he played 23 plus tax, I guess the last 2. Tonight he plays 20. Nugent Hopkins plays more than McDavid tonight.
Yeah.
So I think they were doing it both ways. But I do agree with you. It's like now it's one game that matters, and like I said, the Canucks are still in a good spot. Like you and I talked about this week, like if you had told people in Vancouver or this Canucks team that they were going to have a chance to win this thing in game 7, I think a lot of people would have signed up for that, and I think it sets up to be a really compelling game 7, and a lot of people are going to be excited about it.
Last question here, Frank. Rick Tocchet says Thatcher Demko will not play game 7. It is, however, smokescreen season. A lot can change between now and Monday night. Are there any circumstances, if he's healthy, would you play Thatcher Demko in game 7?
Oh man, you'd be putting him in a really, really tough spot, wouldn't you? We watched Rick Tocchet's presser. Like, I don't get the sense that he's bluffing. Like, I think he's just, I don't think he's the type. I think he's being honest. But if he was healthy and you put him in that spot, you're just hoping for a 1-game magic that this guy can pull out of his hat. I don't know if that's realistic. So, with all that being said, like it's Shelov's show, and hopefully he's got a little more off magic left in him.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, if he begs you, you still say no. Maybe he dresses as the backup, but I think it's got to be Shelov's at this stage of the game, and the Canucks have to be better in front of him than they were in Game 6. Our friends at Bet365 already have the lineup for Monday night, and the Vancouver Canucks are a home ice underdog at plus 120 on the money line to win Game 7. Over under set at 6. And these Game 7s usually go under, right, Frank? Everybody errs on the defensive side of the puck. Refs swallow the whistle. So plus 120 and a total of 6 for Monday night. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code VANBONUS when opening that account. Frank, can't thank you enough for sitting in for Blake here. It's very late back east. Appreciate the time, sir. Appreciate you staying up. And we'll catch up with you on the Daily Show this week.
All right, buddy. We'll talk. Thank you.
Yep. Full meal. Post-game. Rink-wide Vancouver with Jeff Patterson and Irfan Ghaffar. We'll talk to you on Sekeres Price on Holiday Monday. Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.